Hello friends, it's Alexis and welcome to my spoiler-filled reading vlog for Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I am so excited. The day is finally here for our first read of the Quarterly Classics Book Club. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I will have my announcement video linked below, but this is a new book club that I am starting in the year of 2025, where every quarter of the year, we are going to be reading a classic novel together. Of course, you guys helped me pick this one out. My plan is for every book club selection, I will randomly choose 4 book options from a huge TBR list we have hosted in the Discord. And every month, everybody will have a chance to vote for which book we want to read together. So this, of course, was the very first book club selection for quarter 1 of 2025, our winter book, Little Women, and just still, what an excellent choice. Like, I could not have planned this better. This being one of my favorite classics of all time, and at least the beginning taking place during the winter months, like, what an excellent book for us. So I know I mentioned the Discord already, but if you didn't know, there is a link in my description at all times for you to join this server that I created for us to discuss the book. To be a part of the book club, you do not have to join the Discord. It is optional if you want to join our little community we've created to talk more in depth about the book. If you're just here to read the book on your own and watch my vlog, totally fine. Welcome. I'm so happy you're here. If you didn't read the book, still happy to have you. I do recommend you read this book though, and maybe pause this video because this is going to be spoiler filled. I'm going to tell you everything that happens in this book, and I'm not holding back. So if you do not want to be spoiled for this book, save this and come back to it after you've read it. Going back to the Discord, this was the main purpose of why I wanted to start this book club. I, like many other people, really enjoy reading classics, but I'm a little bit intimidated by them. So being able to create a community and specifically a spot like the Discord server where we can go in and ask each other questions and like get clarifying information about what's actually happening in these books is exactly what I was trying to do. And more than that, you don't just have to use it to ask questions. I've been using it as a spot to post all of my spoiler-filled, unhinged, super gushy, in love with this book thoughts throughout my entire reading process. So it's been really, really fun, and I hope those of you that have joined the Discord are enjoying it as well. But yeah, I'm gonna keep it open, and we're just gonna keep updating it every quarter for the next book we're reading, and hopefully it can just be a spot for everybody to hang out and talk about our book together. But again, if you don't want to join the Discord, totally fine. You can also use the comment section on this video to post all of your spoiler-filled thoughts, questions, observations, whatever you might have had while reading this book. I would love to talk to you about it. So if at any point of the video you have something you want to share with me, please use that comment section. All right, I think that's all of the housekeeping I had to get out of the way. So in just a minute, I'm going to send you back in time to when I first started my reread of this. But really quick, I want to remind you to stick around till the end. I know this is a very long video. I have a lot of thoughts about this book, but at the end, I am going to be using a spinner wheel to pick our next 4 book options for the spring quarter 2 book club. So if you want more information into what our next book could be, it'll be at the end of this video. That is it for now, friends. I hope you enjoy my vlog, and I hope you loved Little Women as much as I do. Okay friends, I have my snacks. I hope you have yours too. I have a vanilla bean scone I just got from the grocery store, and then I have these Nutella biscuits that I've been obsessed with. I eat like way too many a day, so I have to limit myself to only 2 on my plate, or I will try to eat that entire bag. And then of course I have my Earl Grey tea. So while I wait for that to cool, I'm going to pick out my annotation supplies for this. I'm very excited because this is a reread. So I'm gonna go through my tab collection and try to find some colors that match this for all of the different things I want to mark. I've only ever done multiple colors with like a few books here and there, but I'm very excited to try doing it with this one, and I'm excited to share it with you when I'm done. Okay, so now that we got to the actual reading of the book part of the video, this is a good chance to remind you this is going to be spoiler filled. So if you do not want to be spoiled for what happens in Little Women, save this video, come back to it after you read it, because I promise you will not be disappointed in this book. But yeah, I won't check in every single time I make an annotation, but like this first page is just, it's so good. You can already see exactly where each of these girls fits into the family, what their role is, what the relationship is, and really what their personalities are. So, oh my God, I love it. I love these girls so much. So we start off with this perfect line, "Christmas won't be Christmas without any presents," grumbled Jo, laying on the rug. It really just sets the scene. You know, we're opening up kind of on Christmas Eve, I think Christmas Day, and the girls are talking just about their situation. Times are tough. There's a war going on. Their father is away. Their mother is a literal saint who gives everything she can away to help people in the community. Hello, I'm filming here. She thinks she's the star. So yeah, I love it. So our first line from Jo, she grumbles it, which is just such a Jo mannerism, like, of course. And then our next line is from Meg. "It's so dreadful to be poor." I mean, same, relatable Meg. And this is just like a theme and a worry of Meg's throughout the entire book. And you already know from line 1 that this is an issue for Meg. So we already get a little hint of that in her first line. Oh, and then she looks down at her old dress. Yes, exactly. And then we get Amy, the youngest, and she says, "I don't think it's fair for some girls to have lots of pretty things and other girls have nothing at all," she added with an injured sniff. I love Amy. She is such like the annoying little sister, but she's so fun. So again, she's just a lot like Meg. She wants the nice things in life. And then of course we get Sweet Beth, and she reminds them all, we've got father and mother in each other anyhow. And she says it contentedly from her corner, and that is so Beth. She is the sister that really grounds everybody, that reminds them what to be thankful for. And in some ways, Beth is the absolute best character. All of these girls have their moments where they're the best. Beth is just like 100% like good. I would say she is the most like the mother in this, who we will meet very, very soon. But Marmee is just like an angel, a literal angel on earth. So my annotation, if you couldn't read my messy handwriting, I'm trying to write like in all pretty cursive, because I've seen people online like annotate classics like that, and I think it looks really aesthetically pleasing. But I just said that this is a perfect opening line, and you can already see all of the girls' personalities and roles in the family in this first page. I didn't even touch on the bottom half of the page where Meg just kind of reminds them why they're doing this, why Christmas is different this year. And you see the older sister come out where she had a little slip up where she was complaining about life, but then she kind of realizes, I'm the leader, I need to set a good example, and that's what she goes in and does. So I'm gonna actually read now. I'll probably check in with you every few parts depending on how many thoughts I have, how long it is. That's something I love about Little Women, is each chapter is like its own little short story almost. Like, yes, they're all connected and they're all on a linear timeline, I think is what I'm trying to say. Like, you couldn't read them out of order, but finishing one is like finishing a little short story. So like they're just, they're perfect. Like, this is a perfect book if you wanted to read just a chapter before bed every night. Like, I love how not intimidating it is as a classic. And I really feel like if you are somebody who's new to classics, this is a perfect first one. So hello again, good morning. It has been a minute since we've talked, literally a minute for you, but for me, it's been about a month because I had some other things that I had to prioritize, so I had to put this down, but I am back. Since the last update, I have made a bit more progress. I got to the 100-page mark last night, so I thought now was a good time to come in and give you my initial thoughts. So this is just a really great book to be rereading, like now that I can really appreciate all the little things that are happening. That maybe the first time around I didn't like see it as important, or I didn't like realize that it built into this bigger thing later on in the story. So we already kind of talked about the first chapter, which by the way, I am having the time of my life annotating. Like, look at all these tabs. I'm writing in this, which I like almost never do in books. Not for any real reason, just because I don't usually have many thoughts while reading. I'm usually just like go with the flow reading for the plot type of person. But like, I'm actually taking the time to stop and like think and like, you know, reflect on my favorite parts or what's going on. And so this has been really, really fun. And it's like exactly what I was looking to do with this book club. Back to chapter 1. We already sort of talked about that opening scene and how I just really love it, that this is such a good setup to learning about our characters, getting to know their personalities. And more than that, this really sets up the story that these girls and this family as a whole, and I guess the country as a whole being at war, they are going through a hard time right now. They do not have a lot of money. They don't have everything they want, but they have everything they need in their siblings and their mother and their father, even though he's not with them currently. So we get into Marmee coming home and reading this letter to them from their father, and it just like really makes them realize like how lucky they are. And this is just such a perfect, beautiful family. Like, I swear, this is like the most heartwarming book I've ever read. And yeah, we end the chapter with them singing together before bed while they do their chores and all that, and just so sweet. So then the next chapter we get is A Merry Christmas. And this is another just like super wholesome chapter that's like so important to the rest of the book. It really sets them up as a super selfless family that all they're looking forward to is this big Christmas breakfast. Marmee comes home, tells them that somebody else needs it more than them, and they right away, without a second thought, donate their breakfast and walk it over to them. And I absolutely love the line when they get there and the mother is like calling them angels, and Jo says, "Funny angels in hoods and mittens." Like, it's just so sweet. And then of course they come home and they put on their Christmas play like they always do, and it's so cute. We're really getting the background to Jo's character and her love for writing and storytelling, and how her sisters all just go along with it, help her out, play these characters in her play. Oh, and then of course we get our introduction to Mr. Lawrence, their neighbor, and it's just so funny to me, like, knowing what a sweet guy he is, that in the beginning of this, they're like scared of him. Like, they think he's like this grumpy old man, and he really isn't. Like, because he saw what they did this morning, giving up their breakfast, he sends them this like huge dessert tray for their Christmas dinner. Like, what a sweetheart. So then we get into chapter 3, which one of my favorite chapters of all time. We meet Laurie, which of course is Mr. Lawrence's grandson. And I just love everything about this chapter. So in the beginning, we get Jo and Meg getting ready to go to this party dance ball. And it is so funny because we have Jo talking about how her dress is burned and her gloves are ruined, and Meg is like the older sister being like, "You have to stop being such a mess." And we know at this point that Meg like really values her belongings. Like, she really feels like an outcast because she recognizes how poor they are compared to all of her friends, and she doesn't have the nice things that her friends do. So as much as she wants to keep her gloves in like pristine condition, she agrees to lend Jo one of them because her sister means more to her than her physical possessions. And then in return, Jo is trying to help her get ready and ends up burning off pieces of Meg's hair. Like, it is so funny and so perfectly represents just what a mess Jo is. Like, she has the best of intentions, but she can't help it. She is so messy. So we get to the ball, and of course Meg is wearing shoes that are like way too small for her because she values like her fashion and her beauty more than her comfort, which, been there. So we finally meet Lori because, of course, Jo is trying to hide the burn in her dress. She can't really partake in the dancing and the party, and she goes to hide behind a curtain only to bump into somebody who is already hiding in the curtains. I love it. I love it so much. Like, these two are such introverts and they don't fit into this society the way that like picture perfect Meg does. But she's trying, right? Jo is there. She's trying to look presentable. She's trying not to get into trouble or make a mess. And yeah, she ends up bumping into Lori, and just right away, I truly believe they are platonic soulmates. Like, they are meant to be best friends. They get each other like nobody else. So they hit it off. They spend the whole night together. They end up dancing like together in the separate room where nobody can see their ruined dress and like that they don't really know how to dance. And it is so sweet. Like, what a beautiful start to this friendship. And then of course Meg ends up hurting herself because of her shoes, and Lori offers up his carriage for the girls to go home, not have to walk. Doesn't have a reason to stay. Like, he was absolutely using this as an excuse to go home too. Like, if Jo's leaving the party, he doesn't have a reason to stay. Like, what's he gonna do? Go back to hiding in the curtains? This whole video is just gonna be me gushing over how much I love this book. And a big part of that is the characters. As you guys know, I'm a huge character-driven reader, and like, these are some of the best characters. Okay, so chapter 4, Burdens. What happens in this one? Oh, right, okay. So this is the first chapter where they get back to like normal life after Christmas break. They're all grumbling about how they don't want to go back to school and work, which like, same. Oh, and of course Marmee comes home and like gets them out of their funk, reminding them how lucky they are and to be grateful for what they have. But my favorite part of this chapter is we actually learn more about Mr. Lawrence. So there's this scene where Beth is like at this fish market and she sees this poor woman begging for fish that she can't afford, and Mr. Lawrence buys it for her. So just more character development of him. And in the next chapter, being Neighborly, this is when we actually meet him and we get more development into Jo and Lori's relationship. I just really love that this chapter really goes into like how lonely Lori is. He doesn't have any siblings. His parents have died. Like, he is literally just in this big empty house with his grandfather. And as sweet as Mr. Lawrence is, like, I definitely don't think that they have a connection the way the girls do with Marmee. Oh, and one of my favorite lines ever is when Lori shows Jo at the library and she says, "Theodore Lawrence, you ought to be the happiest boy in the world. A fellow can't live on books," said Lori. I would definitely be Jo in this situation, fawning over all of his books. Moving into chapter 6, Beth finds the palace beautiful. Super cute chapter about Beth. She is our anxious little bean. And we learn that Mr. Lawrence lost his granddaughter who played the piano. So this is kind of like his opportunity to have another granddaughter figure in Beth. Moving into chapter 7, it's an Amy chapter, and I'm trying not to be biased, but Amy's my least favorite character. You know, she's the youngest, she's whiny. I think I remember liking her more as the story goes on, but yeah, just not my favorite chapter. Ooh, and then chapter 8 is like, it really solidifies my hatred for Amy, at least in this scene, because as we know, Jo and Meg go to a show with Lori, and Amy wants to go. They don't want her to go. They don't want their littlest sister tagging along. So to get back at Jo, Amy ends up burning up her notebook where she's been keeping all of her stories. And of course, by the end of it, the girls end up making up because Amy tries to follow Jo and Lori out ice skating and ends up falling through the ice, like into the frozen water. So it's like a wake-up moment for Jo not to stay angry at her sister because, like, what if she had died? Which, in my opinion, is a little extreme. Like, you can absolutely stay mad at your sister, but also not want her to die. I feel like Jo could have stayed angrier a little longer. She didn't have to forgive Amy as fast as she did, and it seems like Marmee was really pushing her to forgive Amy and like move on, but like, did Amy even apologize? And like, even if she did, like, I feel like Jo had a right to be angry. I would have been angry for a while. And yeah, that's where I have left off at this point. I'm right at chapter 10, page 99. I'm gonna get back to reading and I'll talk to you soon. Hello. Hopefully this angle isn't terrible, but I clearly can't move and disturb Eva. As much as she likes to pretend that she hates everybody, if I sit down to read, she immediately climbs into my lap. She loves to cuddle. So, I've been reading more, obviously, and I just got to the Castle in the Air, or I just finished the Castle in the Air chapter, so I thought it was a good time to check in with you. I've read about 50 more pages. So I'm not going to go too into detail with each chapter, because honestly, a few of these chapters I don't really have a lot of thoughts on. They're not my favorite of the story. But chapter 10, where we last left off, the PC and the PO, is indeed a favorite chapter, really, just because in the 2019 movie, the scene where they're like playing pretend and Joe asks if Laurie can join their like secret society and he like jumps out of the closet is so fun. So I was just like picturing that scene while reading this. So super cute to read their little newsletter they put out. So then after that, we have experiments, which not a favorite chapter. Like, I get the point and the message, but all that sticks with me in this chapter is this poor bird. So of course in this chapter, Marmee plays like a little experiment where she kind of lets the girls do whatever. They don't have to keep up with their chores. They're just free to do whatever they want. And of course, they learn the consequence of their actions. And Beth's bird dies because everybody forgot to feed it. Like, yikes. Content warning for animal death. I don't remember that at all. I was reading that and I was like, oh my God, what? So yeah. And then I just like at the end of this chapter when Joe is making dinner for everybody and she just fucks it up, of course, because it's Joe. What does she do? She used salt instead of sugar, and she used sour cream in one of the recipes. And then Laurie, of course, is there, and he kind of like makes her laugh about it, kind of makes the situation lighter. Of course, at the end of that chapter, the girls realize their mistakes and why housework and chores are important to do. Camp Lawrence is fine. You know, I really don't have too many annotations in it. They end up meeting some of Laurie's friends. And then, of course, Castles in the Air, which my first time reading this, I think this was the chapter that, like, made this a 5-star read for me and, like, really made me start loving it, my first read through, which still stands. This is still just such a sweet chapter. So, of course, in this one, our sisters and Laurie are all having, like, a picnic on a hilltop, and they start talking about their castles in the air, which, of course, are, like, their dreams and their goals, like what they want to do in life. And it's just a really beautiful moment of them all sharing their hopes and dreams. I love it so much. It like completely fits like each one of their personalities, what their dreams are. Of course, Joe's is my favorite. I just love this chapter and I'm gonna keep going now. Hello, good evening. It's a little later, obviously. I've still been reading. I am rapidly declining. I think I caught another cold, which is so great for me, but we're powering through it. I just made it to part 2 of the book, so thought it was a good time to check in, let you know my thoughts. So chapter 14, Secrets, is all about Jo getting her first story published in the newspaper. Super, super cute. I really love the way Laurie and her sister celebrate her when they see it. And in this chapter, we get our first hints of kind of Meg and Jo wanting different things in life. Like, we've always known that Meg wants to get married, and up until this point, like, it's been clear that Jo is still young. She doesn't really have an interest in that at this point. She's, what, 15, 16 at the beginning of this story. So it's, like, just kind of becoming, like, Jo's becoming more aware that, like, that is coming up pretty soon. Meg is going to meet a husband and leave the house, and she's not dealing well with that. So then we get the chapter about the telegram where, of course, Mr. March, their father, is ill, so Marmee has to leave to take care of him. And of course, we get the iconic scene where Jo cuts off all of her hair and sells it to be able to contribute money to help her father. I just thought it was really funny the way everybody was like acting about her cutting off her hair. Like, I know it was a different time, women didn't have short hair, but the dramatics, it's so good. And then the part I actually forgot about is at the end, Jo ends up crying at night because she thinks everybody else is sleeping, and Meg's like, oh no, what's wrong? Are you crying about father? And she's like, no, my hair. Like, it's just so funny because you don't think of Jo being like one of those girls who really cares about her appearance, but it's very clear in this scene that she does actually, and she is kind of regretting her impulsive decision to cut it off. You know, it was for a good reason, and that's just the thing about Jo. Like, she has the purest, goldenest heart, and she's always going to do the right thing in situations. So after that, we get a chapter called Letters, and it's really just us learning about what's going on with the different family members through the letters they're writing to Marmee and their father. And then chapter 17, Little Faithful, of course, is where Beth gets sick. So she ends up catching scarlet fever from the Hummels, which is the family they helped in chapter 2. She has still been going over to help them out, and they're sick. She ends up catching what they have, and the Hummels baby actually dies in her arms. So that was a pretty traumatic part that I forgot happened. So, you know, she's dealing with that. She ends up getting sick herself. And the sisters are pretty scared. They don't really know what to do. They're sort of left alone. I mean, Hannah's there to take care of them, but their mom and dad aren't there. And then because Jo and Meg had scarlet fever when they were younger, they should be safe. But it's really scary watching their sister, who's very, very sick, and just not knowing what to do. So yeah, we have a few chapters where it's just not looking good for her. Marmee does end up coming back. We get some really touching moments about the sisters praying for her and just really talking about how they can't lose Beth because just how important she is to them at the end. And Beth sort of breaks her fever. She ends up starting to recover. Then we get chapter 19, Amy's Will, which, oh, just unfortunately, Amy annoys me so much. Like, is she the worst character? So yeah, I didn't really like this chapter. We're getting sort of a look at what Amy's been doing at Aunt March's. Then Beth wakes up. She's feeling a little bit better. And we find out more about Meg and this man named John, who he is Laurie's tutor. And he actually went with Marmee to like help Mr. March feel better. And you can tell that Marmee is already planning ahead. She likes this John guy. She already feels like him and Meg like each other. And we just get more of a look into Jo's mind because she has not been considering this at all. And she almost gets scared because she's like, wait a minute, I don't want anything to change. Like, what do you mean there's a man interested in Meg? That's my sister. He can't have her. Then we get chapter 21, Laurie Makes Mischief and Jo Makes Peace, where Laurie is a little bit of a troublemaker and he plays a prank on Meg, making her think that John is sending her love letters when it's actually Laurie. So I thought it was super funny that like Mrs. March right away was like, it was Laurie, send him in. She ends up talking to him. He admits and apologizes right away. But then what's even funnier about this is after he goes back home, Jo goes over to kind of like smooth things over, let him know that she's forgiven him. And there's an interaction with her and Mr. Lawrence. And Laurie hasn't told Mr. Lawrence like what happened. He just knows that like his grandson did something. So Mr. Lawrence goes to Jo and was like, you have to tell me what he did so I can punish him. And Jo, again, is just, she's always gonna stand up and do the right thing. So she made a promise to her mother that she wouldn't like repeat what happened because it would be kind of embarrassing to Meg and John. And in that sense, it's not really Mr. Lawrence's business what happened. Like, yeah, Laurie messed up, but it was a harmless prank. So he flat out tells her that she has to tell him what Laurie did, and she says no. I just love her fearlessness of like telling Mr. Lawrence, who they've been like sort of scared of this entire time, even though I think he's a sweetheart, that she's not gonna break the promise and that he doesn't have to know what happened. So then chapter 22, Pleasant Meadows. So then of course we get the chapter where Mr. March finally comes home. They all celebrate Christmas together. Then we get a little bit of drama because John also comes home, Mr. Brooks, the one who is interested in Meg, and they have a little interaction. So that, of course, brings us to chapter 22. Aunt March settles the question, and Mr. Brooks has come and is basically asking Meg, are you interested in me or am I wasting my time? And this whole time we know that Mr. and Mrs. March don't want Meg to get married until she's 20. So that's 3 years away, which she keeps repeating to John, but you know, he kind of wants an answer today. Like, is this worth it for me to wait 3 years? Are you even interested in me? And as much as I hate Aunt March, why is she butting her head into something that is not her business at all? It's actually really funny that this like makes Meg realize that she does like John and defend him, because Aunt March is right away like, he's poor, you can't marry him. And she's like, first of all, you're not going to tell me who I'm going to marry, because I'm going to marry whoever I want to marry because I love them, not because they have money. So of course John overhears it and he's like super, super happy because that means that Meg does like him. And so they're basically sort of engaged at this point, except nothing official until she gets older. And then I just absolutely love Joe's response to all of this. Joe walks in and like sees them talking, and John says, Sister Joe, congratulate us. And she runs out of the room to go get her parents, and she says, oh, do something, go down quick. John Brooke is acting dreadful, and Meg likes it. I love it. Like, she is so anti-marriage. It's so funny. And of course, her parents go in and talk to them. So she goes to her sisters and tells them the terrible news. And the sisters are like, what do you mean? Like, they're celebrating. This is a happy thing. They want their sister to get married and be happy. And Joe is just sitting alone in like her misery because she doesn't want anything to change. Have a really cute moment at the end where Lori kind of recognizes that Joe is a little upset about everything happening, and he tells her that he will always be there for her. And even though he realizes it's not the same as like a sister, like, it's just, it's so cute. He is such a good friend. And I do feel like this interaction is helping her like kind of come to terms with things are gonna change. Like, they're growing up. Her sisters are going to want to get married and move out, and you know, that's not her dream, but it's Meg's dream. So that's where we are, and I'm about to start part 2. Hello again, friends. We are back with more Little Women. I'm actually maybe gonna finish it today. This is where I am currently, my bookmark, and then I'm holding where we last spoke because I have a lot to update you on. Since we got to part 2, we have not spoken, but I have read about 130 pages, and I know the chapter coming up, or like the next few chapters, are very important ones. So I wanted to talk to you first. That way when we get to the next few chapters and stuff is happening, we're gonna have a lot to talk about. So going all the way back to chapter 24, Gossip, and sort of most of these chapters early on in part 2, in my opinion, they're not my favorite chapters. Like, nothing really happens in that. Things are happening, but no major plot points, you know? We're just kind of learning about the girls, how they've changed over these last 3 years that we didn't get to see. This first chapter, Gossip, is about, I think, Meg and John, and just kind of getting their house ready for Meg to move out. The next chapter, of course, is the first wedding, so we get Meg's wedding to John. It's cute. It's just, you know, Meg's not my favorite character. She's kind of whatever. I like this chapter. I like that the whole family's involved and that it's not like a super over-the-top fancy wedding, because obviously they can't afford something like that. And then we get some stuff about Amy, which artistic attempts, I don't even know what this chapter was about. Amy was planning a party or something, but yeah, I do not care at all. Like, I definitely have my favorite characters and I just want to read the chapters about them. So in the next one we have Literary Lessons. Oh yeah, this is just going into Joe's success, selling her stories, domestic experiences. This one is a fun chapter. I'm looking at all my annotations. This one, of course, is sort of Meg and John's first fight. So, of course, we know that Meg is trying to be the perfect little wife. Always have the house clean, always have dinner ready, just be perfect. And that's not achievable, that's not realistic, which she quickly realizes. So she is trying to make jelly, and it does not go the way she wants it to. And I love when John comes home and she goes, oh John, I am so tired and hot and cross and worried. I've been at it till I'm all worn out. Do come and help me or I shall die. so relatable. Like, I have been there. So it is pretty cute the way John reacts, that he's like, it's fine, no big deal. Like, I thought something was really wrong. It's just jelly, like, whatever. But by the way, my friend is here for dinner, so can you, like, whip something up really fast? Which I know, that's kind of just, like, how things were back then. But, like, excuse me, sir. You can make your own dinner for you and your friends. So I do like that she, like, runs away and she's like, nope, you're on your own. Oh, I didn't remember that this is also the chapter where she buys that really expensive material for the dress, which is fun. At first, I thought they were being really dramatic, but I did the conversion. She says she spent $50 on this fabric. So back in 1868, when this was published, that would be about $1,118 in 2025 currency. So yeah, that's a lot to spend on the fabric to make a dress, not even the dress itself. So just not a lot of comments, not a lot of thoughts. I wasn't really annotating a lot in these chapters. What is Consequences about? Oh, okay, so this is the chapter where we learn that Amy is going to go to Paris with Aunt March, and Jo's a little upset because she would have liked to go, but once again, Jo kind of ruins it by her comments that she's made when Aunt March was kind of trying to ask her about France, and Jo said the exact wrong answer, which it's just so true to her character. So then we get a whole chapter of Amy's letters home, which I wish I could care more. I don't care. At this point, I still don't care about Amy. So we have Tender Troubles, and this is where Jo and Marmee have a talk about Laurie and his feelings that are becoming much more obvious to everybody, including Jo. So that is really a big theme in the second half, and the chapter I'm about to read, I'm pretty sure if I'm remembering right, is when things kind of get admitted and dealt with. So I'm not looking forward to it. I just hate when my characters are stressed or upset. Like, I think that's definitely why I like the first half of this book so much more. It's because it's so much more lighthearted. And then in the second half, shit gets real because they've grown up, they're not children anymore, and it's just how life is. So, yeah. I like reading about when they're young, and it's so whimsical and heartwarming, and yeah. This is also where Jo decides that she is going to leave town and go be a governess in New York City, just to kind of give her some distance from Laurie, that hopefully he will get over his feelings for her. Obviously, we know that does not happen, but it's a good plan. And she meets the German tutor, who I don't know how to pronounce his name. They say it's a mix between beer and bear, so Mr. Bier, something like that. And in this chapter, I believe Jo realizes that she has a little bit of a crush on this guy. I don't think she's ready to admit it yet, but it's definitely there. And we end off the chapter that Laurie's graduation is coming up, and she is going to go home to see him, to celebrate. And then we come to chapter 35, Heartache, which is what I'm about to read. It has been a while, so I don't know how hard this is about to hit me, but we're in it together. I've loved you ever since I've known you, Jo. Couldn't help it. You've been so good to me. I've tried to show it, but you wouldn't let me. Now I'm going to make you hear it and give me an answer, for I can't go on any longer. My poor Laurie and my poor Jo. Oh, these poor kids. They both love each other so much, but in different ways. I just want everybody to be happy. Laurie saying that I hope you'd love me though I'm not half good enough. Laurie, stop. You are good enough. You're just not meant to be together. She does love you as a friend. And of course, Laurie is heartbroken, so he storms off, and Jo goes to Mr. Lawrence. And honestly, I love Mr. Lawrence for showing his disappointment, but at no point does he try to, like, talk Jo into it or, like, convince her otherwise. Like, he just accepts her no as an answer, even though he's like, damn, I really thought you two were, like, meant for each other. I thought this was a good idea, but And I love the part at the end where Lori's like, I don't want to go travel alone. And Mr. Lawrence says, I don't ask you to go alone. There's someone ready and glad to go with you anywhere in the world. Who, sir? Myself. Like, aw. I think Lori and Mr. Lawrence's relationship is strained, but I think they're both trying so hard and they don't really like know how to be perfect, but they're putting in the effort and I love them for it so much. Ugh. And the line at the very end breaks my heart every time. Joe and Lori are saying goodbye to each other and he says, it's all right, never mind, and went away without another word. Ah, but it wasn't all right, and Joe did mind. For a while, the curly head laid on her arm. A minute after her hard answer, she felt as if she had stabbed her dearest friend, and when he left her without a look behind him, she knew that the boy, Lori, never would come again. My heart! This chapter was necessary to happen, right? Because they couldn't just hide their feelings for each other. He had to see if she felt the same way, and she had to be honest with him. So it does hurt that, like, that is just the fact now, that their relationship will never be the same now that this has happened. It will never be as lighthearted as it was when they were children. But hopefully they will both grow and get over this and be able to come back to as close of a friendship that they did have before. And it's not either of their faults. It's just once feelings get hurt, it's just natural, I think. And I feel for both of them. I feel bad for Lori because he does deserve love, but he deserves somebody who loves him back. And that is the one great thing about Joe, is she even thought about it in this chapter. Like, she could do the easy thing and just marry him to make him happy, but she knew that wasn't right. She can't force herself to love him, and he really does deserve somebody that loves him, like not just as a friend, but actually loves him. I feel bad for her having to go through this just awkward moment with a friend where you don't want to hurt their feelings. Like, the last thing she wants to do is hurt Lori's feelings, but also she's just not gonna pretend that she loves him. It feels to me like this is such an important book for its time to, like, you know, say that a woman has a choice. If she doesn't want to get married, she doesn't have to. I love Joe's independence. I love Louisa May Alcott for writing Joe this way. Just what an incredible character. Oh no. That's what we're gonna do here. That's the next chapter is called Beth's Secret. I don't know if I'm emotionally prepared for this. Yep, it's what I feared. We find out in this chapter that Beth is sick again and she doesn't think she has a lot of time left. And what the fuck? Like, I know what's coming this time around, but wow, this sucks. Oh, stop. I'm reading a sad part. Are you here to comfort me? Yes, yes. You said don't read the sad book, just be happy. No, no! Okay, Hyper. This is too much. Why don't you lay with me? Hey, come here, lay with me. You're gonna knock over my camera. Come lay with me. Come here, right here. Yes, cuddle with me. Oh, you're ruining everything. This is a sad moment. Okay, I'm gonna try and read Joe's poem that she wrote for Beth. The part where Beth is like, I didn't do anything with my life. It felt useless, but your poem made me feel like I did more, like I had a purpose. And then for her to die in Marmy's arms, I'm right there. Oh my god, and was Amy not even there for it? Like, she didn't even get to say goodbye. Oh my god, when was the last time Amy saw her sister? Like, she doesn't even know. This sucks. How could she do that to us, Poe? How are you gonna kill off, like, the most selfless, likable character like that? What's up? So I just got to where Amy and Lori find out about Beth, and Lori rushes to go comfort Beth because, of course, they're in Europe together. Not together, but like they're both in Europe. And they've been spending time together. As we've seen for the past few chapters, we know that they're sort of developing a relationship. And yeah, I think the first time reading this, I might have had a problem with that. I just didn't love it. But this time reading it, I definitely, like, it feels right. You know, he loves this family so much. He really is meant to be a part of it. And it's not right for him to be with Jo. Now that Lori isn't blinded by his love for Jo, basically. Like, he's not waiting around for her. He's opened his eyes and he's realized, like, oh yeah, Amy's grown up. She's different now. She's always been there for me. Like, we have this friendship of growing up together and just kind of realizing that they're actually sort of perfect for each other, as much as Amy annoys me. And I love Lori. Like, I see it. Amy has gotten a lot better since she's grown up, and I really just love this part in learning to forget, where he's there for her, and it's the first moment that they kind of realize, like, what's happening between them, I think. And Lori had decided that Amy was the only woman in the world who could fill Jo's place and make him happy. Like, I moved out to the living room so Dan could go to bed. I'm still reading. I'm trying to finish it tonight. We're so close. I think I can do it. Anyways, I made it to chapter 43, surprises. This is sending me. Okay, so the news of Lori and Amy's engagement has been made to the family. They sent them a letter, and Jo is now dealing with it. She is happy, but it's making her realize some things about herself. So in the beginning of this chapter, we open, and it's the day before her 25th birthday. I'm losing it. So Jo says that almost 25 and nothing to show for it. But then Jo goes on to call herself an old maid. That's what I am to be, a literary spinster with a pen for a spouse, a family of stories for children, and 20 years hence a morsel of fame, perhaps. But then it gets even worse, because it goes on to say, well, you're not really an old maid until you hit 30. And then you should just accept that you're a spinster. And then remember that you have 20 more useful, happy years in which you may learn to grow old gracefully. If you didn't know, I am turning 30 this year in about a month and a few days. So, you know, not married yet, so I guess I should just accept that I am an old spinster. I forgot that Amy and Lori just, like, Blue, excuse me, ma'am. I forgot that Amy and Lori just, like, get married in Europe without the rest of the family being there or knowing. Wild. So I just got to the part where Amy and Lori come home and kind of announce that they got married. And this is our first time seeing Mr. Lawrence since Beth, and I forgot. Oh my god, I forgot how heartbroken he must have been about her death. Oh, it's so sad. He tells Jo that she must be his girl now, and she says, I'll try to fill her place, sir. Stop. Like, I was just getting over being sad, and then they have to do that to me. Good morning. Hello. I am here to officially close this vlog out because I have finally finished Little Women. I ended up staying up until 2 a.m. last night on a work night. Like, what is wrong with me? But we did it. I had to finish this one. I couldn't let it go any longer. So, no surprise, upon this reread, it's staying as a 5-star. This is one of my favorite classics of all time. And I definitely got more out of it this second read through. You know, I'm a little bit older. I know the story, so I knew what to expect and what to look out for while reading. Yeah, I think this is definitely one that you could revisit at different times in your life, and you're always gonna get something new from it. Like, it's just such a lovely story and just full of lots of different lessons, a lot about just being grateful for what you have, appreciating your family, and just loving each other. So that's really the big thing that I get out of this story. And I'm so happy that this was our first book club pick and I get to share one of my favorites with all of you. I really, really hope you enjoyed this one as well. Please let me know below if you did read it with me. What did you think? What were your ratings? Also, reminder that the link to the Discord is always in my description. Again, the Discord is not mandatory, but it is another place for us just to discuss while we read, so you don't have to wait for my vlog to come out at the end of the quarter. So, where did we last speak? We get more chapters about Meg and her marriage, and of course, we get like the shock that Lori and Amy have gotten married, like secretly. They come home and announce it to everybody. And just as, oh, I love that I just opened to this part. Jo is looking around the room and seeing how happy everybody is, but also noticing that she doesn't have anybody directly to like share her joy with. Like up until this point, it has always been her and Lori. Like they were a team, they were the pair, they were always hanging out, always talking. And now Lori has Amy. And Jo starts to get a little bit sad and a little lonely. And it's like a super sad part actually. But I absolutely love that in that very same scene, there's a knock on the door and who is outside but Mr. Bear. I love it. I love it. And then, of course, our dear Jo doesn't realize that he's there for her. Yeah, there's a line from her that it says she wondered what business brought him to the city and finally decided that he had been appointed to some great honor somewhere but had been too modest to mention the fact. Like, girl, he's there for you. Like, I know we do find out kind of what he was doing in town, but like the main reason he's there is for you. And it's just so cute to see her be so clueless about love, like so clueless that somebody could actually like her like that. So then we get a chapter about Lori and Amy's relationship, and they're kind of talking about Jo and how they feel about Mr. Bear. Oh my god. And then we get Under the Umbrella, which is such a cute chapter where Jo and Mr. Bear finally admit their feelings to each other. And like, I really, really love it. But I want to know everybody's thoughts. Do you read Jo to be either asexual and or aromantic? I would have been completely fine with this story ending and her not getting married. I maybe would have preferred that. It just felt better to her character, like more her. I do understand that a woman in the 1800s, you know, is kind of expected to get married. So it could just be like the time period and everything. But yeah, I'd be really interested to hear what other people thing. Like, I'm fine with their relationship because I think they're really cute, but also like Jo was giving those vibes the entire story that she was just never really interested in a relationship. She liked to be alone, she liked her independence, and she valued her friendships more than romance. So yeah, just my thoughts there. And then we end on a very happy, great ending to a story called Harvest Time. And we just learn what has kind of happened with Jo's dreams of opening a boys' school. So we hear that Aunt March has died and left her estate basically. Like, it's not a normal house. It's a mansion essentially. And Jo has turned it into a boys' school, and Mr. Bear is going to like help teach, and it's so perfect. It is exactly what they should be doing together, and I love it. I love that it just has such a happy ending. But I do love the callback to the Castles in the Air chapter at the very end, where Amy asks, "And yet your life is very different from the one you pictured so long ago. Do you remember our castles in the air?" It's so cute. Like, yeah, maybe their lives didn't turn out exactly how they predicted and like exactly what they wanted, but they all ended up happy and in love and together, and just, it's so sweet. I love this story so much. So that is that. That is my final rating. Look at all my tabs. I have not shared this with you. Look at them all. But that means we now get to do the super exciting thing and pick what our next book is going to be. Okay, so I am back. I'm screen recording. I have my spinner wheel up. I have put all of our options from the TBR list in Discord into the wheel. Again, if you want to suggest a book for us to read, there is a spot in the Discord to do so. Some of these are rereads, others are on my own TBR. So just like last time, we're going to do 4 spins to decide 4 different options for everybody to vote on. I am hoping that we don't do a reread this time. Like, it was super, super fun, but I need to work on getting my physical TBR down, so I'm just hoping that we get something I haven't read before. We shall see, and let's do this. Spin number 1. All right, option 1, East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I have really liked the other John Steinbeck I have read so far. I think I read Grapes of Wrath, and it was like in my favorites that year, so super interested to read another book by him. All right, so we're gonna hide that choice, and we're gonna spin again for option 2. This come up last time. Okay, so we have another F. Scott Fitzgerald, which I don't remember. No, I don't think this one came up last time, but 2 of his other works came up last time. So the wheel really wants us to read F. Scott Fitzgerald. I don't really know too much about this one. I don't know if it's just the story of The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, or if this is a like a bind up of a bunch of different short stories. So I will definitely have to check that out and let you guys know. And then spin number 3 is going to be little bit of an intimidating one here, Bleak House by Charles Dickens. To be honest, I have not heard many good things about this one. I feel like this is not many people's favorites, but I do eventually want to read all of Charles Dickens' work. I think I own all of them physically at this point. So, you know, it'd be a good one to get it off of the TBR, and maybe reading it together with you guys would make me appreciate it more. You never know. Or I might just love it, you know. I've read 2 other stories by him. I've read A Tale of Two Cities and something else. I've read something else by him. I'll put it on the screen. But yeah, good choice. And our final option number 4 is going to be how did I know this was going to come up? Because I feel like this is going to win because so many people love it, myself included. It's like on my list of favorite books of all time. Not even favorite classics of all times, like hands down, favorite books of all time. I love this book so much. So I wouldn't be mad if we reread it. I just, again, was trying to get something else off of my TBR. Either way, I'm not gonna be mad with what you guys pick, but it is now in your hands for you to decide what we are going to be reading for the second quarter of the year. Of course, this is going to be our spring book selection for the months of April, May, and June. And then in June, just like this, I will upload a spoiler-filled vlog where I will give you all my thoughts about it. So yeah, at the time this is uploaded, I have now posted the poll for our next book club selection in the Discord. So go check out the link below. Help me pick what we're gonna read for our next book club pick. And for our emoji of the video, I think we have to go with something simple. Let's just do the book emoji to really symbolize Joe's love for writing and reading and teaching. Yeah, it just feels like the perfect representation of this book. So as always, friends, I hope you read a good book today, and I will see you soon in my next one. Bye.